HowlSage, Sages of Darkness, Book 1. Written by Brock Eastman. Narrated by J.J. Battiston. Chapter 5, October 5th, Thursday. I'd finally gotten a decent night's sleep in my bed, and better yet, Ike did not come in to wake me. It was my phone alarm that pulled me from my sleep. I showered, changed, and headed to breakfast, where everyone was seated and eating. The scene was oddly calm to me, having failed a second night of getting the HowlSage. I walked outside with Ike and asked why everyone was so calm. He shrugged. "Dad told me to get some rest last night," Ike explained. "He wouldn't even let me read. He made me turn off my light and go to sleep. I thought it'd be hard, but I fell asleep right away. And then my alarm didn't go off. Turns out my dad had turned it off after I fell asleep. And I didn't wake up until he woke me." Ike sighed. I guess I did need the sleep. The conversation took us down the steps and into the workshop. My backpack was there from last night. I dug out a folder, remembering about a worksheet I was supposed to fill out. Our science teacher, Mr. Bill, was old school. He still liked us to fill out these ancient worksheets with a pencil instead of turning in digital assignments through WebTeach. This was one about chemical formulas. I got to work while Ike watched over my shoulder, correcting me as I went. It was 10 minutes before Mr. Swigert and McGarrett came in. I put my almost finished homework back into my folder and zipped up my backpack. "Homework is done?" McGarrett asked. "Nearly. A few more problems to go, but I've got study hall before class," I explained. McGarrett nodded. "Good. I want you to keep up with your studies. No slacking off there, okay?" "Yes, sir," I said. "I'll be driving you down in a bit," McGarrett said. "But first, I have something to share with you two." He sounded grave, and Mr. Swigert didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he began tapping on the tablet. A large world map appeared on one of the wall-mounted screens. More than 24 green circles started to flash across the map. "Taylor, you should know 30 HowlSage attempted rising. At least those are the ones the Society picked up by sensors." "What?" Ike asked. I said, "Are you serious?" "We expected other HowlSage might rise at the full moon, but 30? That's unheard of," Ike said. McGarrett nodded. "Of course I'm serious. I wouldn't tease about such a thing. No one in the Society has ever heard or read of a number, even a quarter that size, rising on the same night." There was an unfamiliar quiver to his voice. "Why are there so many?" I asked. McGarrett took a long, deep breath. "Interest in the occult and dark magic curiosities have increased over the last several decades. No thanks to several books and movies. That said, not all people consume these books and movies for entertainment. Some dig deeper. It's this digging that leads them to dark, dangerous places. And the rising of so many HowlSage is proof of that." He shook his head. "A HowlSage needs a human to invite it and to prepare its den." I swallowed. "The good news is that 7 are already banished," Mr. Swigert said, and the screen flashed. 7 of the green beacons were red now. "So that leaves 23. I expect several others will be destroyed tonight, as hunting teams are redeployed to other areas." It bugged me that he said several others, but didn't make a point to include the HowlSage we were hunting. I was sure he thought I was incapable of banishing it. There was a long moment. "Is that why you didn't let me land last night?" I asked. "Is there another hunter on their way here?" To my surprise, McGarrett shook his head. "No, there is no hunter on their way. And yes, the number of risings is why I did not let you land. I'm cautious. I spoke with Sir Raven Grey last night, and we are concerned something greater is at work here," McGarrett explained. "And until we can rule out a larger connection among all these risings, we want you to be careful and not take unnecessary risks." There wasn't anything for me to say. I wasn't even sure why McGarrett was sending me out. Why not wait until one of these other, more experienced hunters could come to Ashley Meadows and take care of it? I wanted to ask, but my frustration and insecurities kept me silent. "We'll proceed with the hunt tonight, scout the area, and look for an opportune time to strike. We're going to practice patience," McGarrett said. which meant Taylor would not be facing the demon again, because he is too weak and inexperienced. He's a kid. No one had to say it. We were all thinking about it. But for now, it's off to school. Olson will drive you both down, McGarrett finished. Once I set out, my first destination was the mines again, but this time I was leaving before sunset and from the Pink Hippo. Our objective? Spot the HowlSage leaving the tunnels. I would be at my highest altitude yet, and McGarrett and Mr. Swigert had spent the day installing remote cameras at each of the entrances. Ike also informed me of another adjustment to my J-Pack. More control, he explained. The mountainside was quiet. Hardly any animals stirred as I cruised about the sides of the peak at 80 miles per hour. The sun shaded the hillsides in a warm pink as it dropped behind the last ridge. A half hour had passed when an alarm at a local jewelry store went off. Mr. Swigert confirmed it was the HowlSage by hacking the store's security camera feed. Though it was black and white, grainy, and low-quality footage, it was impossible to miss the hairy, wolf-like beast wrecking the inside of the store. Neither McGarrett nor Mr. Swigert knew what to make of it. One, the HowlSage had already ventured all the way into town without being detected. And two, it broke into a jewelry store? Maybe the person responsible for the HowlSage's rising decided to use the demon to steal valuables, which hopefully meant there was no nefarious plan. Perhaps I could get back to the hunt, and McGarrett would allow me a little more freedom to do so. I changed direction and slid my finger across my glove, surging forward on the sleek black wings that stretched from my jetpack like a bat. Suddenly, one of my engines misfired as I neared the edge of town. It drove me down. I angled up and used the small flaps on the J-Pack's wings to recover, but not before I barreled through a willow tree. The wispy, whip-like branches tore across my exposed neck. I stopped and hovered. Thankfully, the goggles shielded my eyes, and my wings stayed intact. "Taylor, is everything all right?" McGarrett asked. He'd seen the feed from my helmet camera. "Yeah, few scrapes," I said. I slowed as the 5-story building housing the jewelry store came into view. "Taylor, it's heading to the roof," McGarrett's voice echoed in my earpiece. One of my engines misfired again, and I was spiraling toward the ground. I tried decreasing the thrust, shifting the flaps, anything to stop me from splattering into the asphalt. Within a few dozen feet of the pavement, I regained control and zipped upward, nose to the wall with the brick exterior of a 3-story building. My heart thumped in my chest, as if I needed anything other than a demon to add to my anxiety. "Taylor, are you okay?" McGarrett asked. "What happened?" "Engine misfire," I said. Mr. Swigert spoke in the background, but I couldn't hear what he said. "Can you continue?" McGarrett asked. "Yes." I landed on the west side of the jewelry store's roof with my sword drawn. "I'm on location. Where is it?" "Headed up. Should be a roof access door nearby." A flickering light next to the roof access door caused odd flares in my night vision. I slipped off the goggles. A half-second later, the light fixture was obliterated. The door flew off its hinges in a twisted scrap of metal. It scraped across the ground with a fingernail on chalkboard sort of sound. And there it was. The wolf-like beast sauntered out of the dark stairway, its glowing yellow eyes staring me down. The HowlSage glared and flashed white, dagger-sharp teeth in what I can only describe as a smile. Saliva dripped from its mouth and exploded in green spurts of flame as each acidic drop hit the ground. It was larger than a couple of nights before, at least 9 feet tall, maybe 10. The blade of my sword quivered. "Pull yourself together. The hunt can end now." There was nowhere for the HowlSage to go with only the edge of the roof behind it. A glint of light drew my attention to a long silvery chain and ruby pendant dangling in its right paw. Did the demon break into the jewelry store for one of them? Then I saw the area where its tail used to be. A smile slipped across my face with a sense of victory. I could do this. The HowlSage snarled, narrowing its eyes. It hunched, preparing to lunge at me. Time seemed to stop. My mind felt suddenly empty. A sense of hopelessness overcame me, and I took a shallow breath. I wasn't ready to die or prepared to face such an evil creature. I couldn't do this. My non-sword hand went to my neck, and I slipped a small silver cross out from under my shirt. The cross was all I had left of my mom. I pictured her at that moment and took a breath. "You're ready," I mumbled to myself, but the moisture between my palm and the hilt of my sword made me question the pep talk. The demon bared its teeth in a wide grin, then jumped back off the roof. The HowlSage's smile told me all I needed to know. This was nothing more than a game, and I was already losing. "Where'd it go?" McGarrett asked. He'd been watching through my body cam. "Over the side." Tires squealed, brakes screeched, and the echo of metal on metal crashing filled the air before I made it to the side of the roof. The scene below was like that of an ill-made end-of-the-world movie. The intersection of Harrison and Burton was a tangle of cars, trucks, traffic signals and signs, and green fire. Yes, green fire. Green flames spewed from the front of an old blue Ford, the vehicle's hood smashed from the impact. Its chassis was pummeled 2 feet into the pavement. The driver escaped and stumbled toward an overturned silver SUV. He slid to the ground against the vehicle's hood. Even from up here, I could hear him muttering incessantly to himself. "Hair, big fangs! Hair, big fangs!" The power was out on the street below. I scoured the road in each direction. There was no sign of the demon. My inclination was to search for it, but with the disastrous scene below, I needed to tidy up first. If evidence of the beast got into the local news, panic, fear, and questions could result. It happened before, and it always complicated the hunt. A police cruiser's siren blared, more likely in response to the jewelry heist than the accident. There were only seconds to get down, cover up the evidence, and get samples and pictures of the damage before the place was swarming with emergency personnel. Any fur or saliva samples or photos I got would assist Mr. Swigert and Ike in their analysis of the HowlSage. Before I left, Ike had mentioned he could use soil samples from the demon's fur to determine what area of the mine the traces of soil came from. I had told him, if I'm that close to the demon, it'd better already be dead. I retracted the wings of my jetpack. With the prongs of my grapple hooked securely on the ledge, I launched myself over the side of the building. I practiced this repeatedly on the pink hippo, all 7 stories of it. The jewelry building was 5, so it was a cakewalk. After all, I had descended 5 stories down a trellis last night using my bare hands. Feet planted firmly against the stone exterior of the building, I lowered myself down. The chilly night wind whistled in my ears. A quick tap of the release on my grapple launcher, and the hook and line retracted. I pulled my goggles over my eyes. I should have paid more attention from atop the building and searched for a clear path through the gauntlet of overturned vehicles. I Bo Duke style slid across the trunk of an orange Chevy and dashed around the smashed grille of a city bus. I sidestepped an out-of-place manhole cover and landed right in a puddle of nasty-smelling green liquid. I crouched for a closer look. It could be from the HowlSage. I slipped a vial from my pack and carefully slid it through the puddle, scooping the liquid in, then plugging it with a stopper. The green liquid fizzed. Was it about to explode? But before I decided to toss the vial, the fizzing stopped. I put the sample safely in my pack and headed toward the old blue Ford the demon had used as a cushion. Though there were witnesses everywhere, only a few saw what had made the impact. The rest had seen a crash, or heard it, and came outside to see. Using my goggles, I took several pictures. Though the lights in the intersection were out, the moon's bright glow exposed my hunting gear. I couldn't stay long. I couldn't afford someone to grow curious. Soon more police, a perimeter, a bigger crowd, news crews, and questions would choke off my escape. Time to go. One of the top 10 rules given to me. Don't get caught. I took more pictures of the impact on the Ford truck's hood and the scene around. I swiped up a patch of matted fur, certainly the HowlSage's, and stuck it into an evidence bag, then sealed it. I sprayed a neutralizing agent on the flames near the cars, changing them from green to a natural orange. It was one thing for people to think they saw something, and another to leave evidence for their cameras. I took the registration from the glove compartment of the smashed Ford and snapped a picture of the driver's name and address, in case we needed to contact him, but right now, he was one man who thought he saw something. No one would believe him. "Hey, you!" I spun back. A man wearing a green shirt and tan overalls pointed at me. "Yeah, you! What you doing in this guy's car?" the man asked, leaving the muttering driver to confront me. He stalked toward me, finger still pointing. "Looting, are you? Time to go." I pulled the pin on a smoke grenade and tossed it under the car as I stepped away. The grenade cartridge dissolved as the smoke released, leaving no evidence. White tufts billowed from under the rear of the vehicle. I slid around the front of the car and into the shadows as someone shouted, "It's on fire!" Then I ran. I dashed away while everyone's attention was on the smoking car. A short way down Burton Street, I slipped out my grappling gun. A pull of the trigger, and the hook launched into the dark night sky with a soft pfft. On the roof, I paused to listen and survey the area, trying to spot the HowlSage. It was out there somewhere. The police were closing off the intersection and asking questions. "McGarrett, come in," I said. "Do you have a position on the HowlSage?" A full 30 seconds passed with no response. "McGarrett, hey, are you guys there?" Nothing. The radio was silent. No fuzz or crackle like you'd expect from lousy reception. It was dead. "McGarrett?" The sky was clear, leaving the bright moon visible in all its glory. "Wait, be patient. They'll reconnect any moment. It's a small technical difficulty." I waited, but I was growing frustrated and maybe a little fearful. It's a technical difficulty that could cost me my life. Then a girl's voice rose into the night and distracted me, drawing my attention to the street below. She was about my age and standing in the shadows, talking to someone else, hidden behind an emergency vehicle. I zoomed in with my night vision goggles. Although green and grainy, her beauty struck me. I might have been hunting a demon, but I was still a teenage guy. Her face was familiar, maybe from school, but I couldn't recall her name. Clank, clunk, clackety, clack. I spun with my sword, poised to deflect the attack. My eyes scoured the rooftop, only to find two filth-covered rats fighting over a rusty minced garlic can. No threat. I lowered my sword and turned back to the street. The girl was gone. The police extended their perimeter. Chief Rutledge climbed from his dark gray police truck. He'd clean up any evidence of the hunt that I had missed. I had taken care of the most obvious, the green flames, and got the samples I needed. And he'd talk some sense into the smashed car's driver. And if that didn't work, Mr. Swigert would visit the hospital and provide the man with a unique alteration drug. And the chief's presence made me feel not as alone. "McGarrett, come in," I called into my chin-strap mic. Still nothing. A short brick wall edged the roof. I took a seat and waited. I needed McGarrett if I was going to continue the hunt. A breath that felt as if I'd held it since the beginning of the night released. I slid my sword into its sheath. Maybe I needed this minute of silence. McGarrett mentioned that the beast's presence, its demonic nature, could stir feelings of fear in even the most seasoned veterans. But the seconds I faced the snarling wolfish beast felt like hours, and they were dark hours. Hopeless hours. What had changed from the first night? The fear hadn't caught me then. I'd faced it. I'd fought it. And I'd taken off its tail. Was it because I'd learned about the number of HowlSage that had risen, or the feeling that McGarrett doubted my abilities? I slipped the cross necklace back out from under my shirt. My mom had taken it off moments before she had disappeared. It was as though the ones who took her were waiting for that exact moment. Somehow the necklace calmed me, or at least the memory of my mom did. I looked up into the night sky. I sighed and slipped my cross necklace back under my shirt. If encounters with the HowlSage were going to be like this, fear, hopelessness, and then the creature disappearing into the night, all while thinking I was nothing more than a joke, maybe McGarrett was right. A flash of memory from the night my dad had disappeared crossed my mind. My muscles tensed with the anger and desire for revenge. I couldn't let fear get to me. I needed to focus on what mattered, destroying those who took my dad from me. "Taylor, are you all right?" McGarrett's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Where have you been?" I asked, frustration obvious in my voice. "We've been trying to get a hold of you. Your camera and audio cut out," McGarrett said. "We got it back only now. We're not sure what happened. The whole system shut down. Communications, tracking, all of it. And in the time you were turning it back on, it could have ripped me to shreds, or eaten me." "Did you get it?" he pressed. "No," I said bluntly. "It acted like this was a game. It saw me, it paused, and it smiled at me." It sounded ridiculous, and if I would have said it to someone not as severe as McGarrett, I would have gotten laughed at. But he didn't laugh. He listened. "Then it leaped off the building and disappeared. I've been trying to get a hold of you ever since. The street below is a wreck of vehicles." "Did you clean up?" he asked. "Yes, as best as I could, but Chief Rutledge is there now." "Good. Did you get a picture of it?" McGarrett asked. "We didn't have video." "No, but it was big. Bigger than last night," I said. "And it did steal something. A pendant." "A pendant?" McGarrett asked. "Yeah, like a necklace on a chain with a jewel," I said. Silence. He was thinking. "We'll get it," McGarrett said. "Come on back. We may still find it tonight. Mr. Swiger is rebooting the sensors around town, but only half are back online." The HowlSage's strength and size would increase every night, and more demons would invade the town through the ether pit in the mines. HowlSagen were sort of like the aerial strike before an invasion. While they didn't fly, they did clear the way and shield the smaller, weaker demons from hunters or angels. "Shouldn't I wait here?" I asked. "I'll be closer to its location when we find it." A pause. "No, come back. We can't risk you alone and without communication again," McGarrett said. "Okay," I agreed. The jetpack's silky wings extended as I touched the triangle on my glove. My finger hovered over the ignition button when I recalled the engines misfiring. The pavement and willow tree flashed before my eyes, and the scratches on my neck itched at the memory. Ike's mention of tweaking the jetpack rang in my mind. Ike was a good inventor. His dad was a great inventor. Like a broken record, McGarrett instructed me. "Be discreet. Don't get caught." How am I to do that with faulty gear? Unlikely, I thought. "McGarrett, can you send someone?" "Is your JPack damaged?" Ike tweaked it before I left." There was a pause. "Enough said," he grunted. "The missus and I will be right over to get you. Your GPS on?" "Yeah." "I'll track you on my phone. See you in a bit, Taylor, and..." Silence. "And we'll get it. Don't worry." So much for a pep talk to soothe my bruised ego. McGarrett wasn't much of a motivational speaker. Sometimes his wife jabbed him in the side, and he'd find a few encouraging words. "Yes, sir." The connection ended. My feet dangled over the side of the building as I waited. The full moon cast a bright glow over the town, illuminating the people cleaning up after the demon's disaster-causing appearance. As desired, it seemed they had no idea a wolfish creature was the cause behind the accident. I stared over the town. Somewhere out there, the hairy, wolf-like beast lumbered back into its dark burrow. No one in this little town understood the danger amongst them, or the darkness sweeping into Ashley. They had no idea a 15-year-old was the one protecting them from this dastardly beast. Then I spotted the girl and another person walking up the street. A hood hid the other person's face. It hit me where I'd seen her, the principal's office last week. I couldn't remember her name. The two slipped around the corner and out of sight. I wondered what she was doing out. Most kids were home, not downtown this time of night. Then again, why did I even care? It wasn't like there was time for a relationship with a girl whose name I didn't know. My life was never ordinary. Since I was little, I had traveled the world with my parents. I'd never had time to worry about typical boy things like sports, pizza, and video games. My abnormal life only grew more bizarre as I got older. There was an old saying, "You don't choose your work, it chooses you." Well, in my case, that couldn't have been any truer. Headlights flashed along the street as McGarrett's car came around a corner. "Taylor, we're here," McGarrett called over my earpiece. With the grappling hook latched into place, I bounded off the roof. I twisted hard to avoid a window, and my ankle rolled against the brick exterior of the building. I winced with pain and let out a shout. I awkwardly dangled for a moment, until I noticed a light turn on in the window above me. My cry probably woke someone up or startled them. Using my uninjured ankle, I bounced off the wall as I quickly repelled. A moment later, on the sidewalk next to the Rolls-Royce, my ankle had a heartbeat of its own. I hobbled toward the car, and McGarrett got out. "What happened? I thought you said you didn't..." I cut him off. "I didn't." McGarrett helped me remove the J-pack. He placed it into the trunk as I crawled into the car and took off my helmet. "Taylor, how are you feeling? You look pale. You look cold. Here, drink from this insulated travel mug. I brought you some hot apple cider," Mrs. Riley insisted before I was entirely in my seat. She often made quick assessments that led you to what she wanted, in this case, for me to drink the apple cider she had brought. I slipped on my seatbelt and took the mug, knowing if I didn't, I would hear about it the rest of the way home. Besides, it was a chilly night, and her apple cider was the best. The fruit was from the inn's orchard, and she pressed the apples herself. She even ground the cinnamon. The drive took 15 minutes. McGarrett tapped a screen, and the large wrought iron gate guarding the inn swung open. The dark woods surrounded us as we snaked up the long gravel driveway. Most of the sensors remained offline, and we were unable to relocate the HowlSage, and so McGarrett suggested calling the hunt off for the night. Ike said that a couple of sensors recorded an 80% probability the HowlSage had passed by, and he outlined a projected route for the HowlSage. I insisted we go back out, but Mr. Swigert went into an explanation of searching for something fast and adept at hiding across a small city and miles of forest and mountain slopes. The argument? The hunt was strategic, and burning me out on the third night would be a mistake. I should have been thankful, but part of me wondered if McGarrett and Mr. Swigert were trying to protect me. Or worse, they didn't believe I was up to the challenge. "No, I think it'd be better to try. It's not even 11 yet," I said. "Maybe a few flights over the mines?" McGarrett frowned. "I thought you mentioned there were some issues with the J-Pack." Ike's demeanor changed immediately. His dad looked at me. "What happened?" I looked at Ike and then back at Mr. Swigert. "One of the engines misfired a couple times." "That should not happen," Mr. Swigert said. "I checked and rechecked it." Ike went silent as he stared at his hands. "I'll take a look at it right away. It'll be ready tomorrow night," Mr. Swigert said. I felt terrible for Ike. He was trying to help. Then I remembered the samples. Ike had specifically asked for them. I pulled them from my pack and set them onto one of the desks. Mr. Swigert swirled the vial of green liquid and then disappeared into the back of the workshop where the lab was. Ike took the sample of fur and headed to the lab too. I followed. Ike used a pair of tweezers and pulled a few strands of the hair free. Then he set them on a slide and slipped it under a microscope. The lab was quiet as the Swigerts worked. McGarrett remained back in the command center. After I stood around for a few minutes, I realized there wasn't much more for me to do. Ike and his dad were in the zone. I headed back into the command center, and McGarrett was on the phone with the chief. He gave me a polite wave and mouthed, "I'll see you in the morning." And though I hadn't planned to head to bed, I took that as my hint. I tried not to take it negatively. I was the new guy to the scene. McGarrett and the Swigerts had been doing this all their lives. I needed to find my place as a hunter.